After the great upheaval, Brother Fox came and scared away the deer, and it began to snow really, really hard. And there was snow and ice everywhere. This was what we called the Great Snow and Ice Age. And all of the deer lost their antlers and ran away because of all of the cold and ice and snow. And they were very afraid. And then the white man came and built buildings. I don't know how they got here so fast, but they did. They incorporated sometime around September, maybe on the 16th of 1895, but that's just a rough guess. And they named the town Matewan to ridicule the local Indians that lived here and claimed the land as their own. And then the trees looked a lot like telephone poles at that time. There weren't many trees left because the big Sandy expedition in 1756, sometime before the town was born, came through. And they made the Indians to surrender and give up all of their canoes. And we welcomed the white man because we thought it was good. For they learned from us. They learned how to grow things like corn. And they made tools like hoes. At least I think that's a hoe. And they planted rows of corn. And then the Indians had nothing. We could get day jobs, of course, sometimes on the farms, but you know how that goes. But the great river that round around all supplied water for the white man's fields, and the Indians had nothing. And then there were even more trees. But as you notice, all of the trees get skinnier and thinner the longer the white men are here. And finally, when the white man decided he wanted a tree, he would cut down a tree. Though how he cuts down this concrete tree, I don't know. But he's got a big axe and a funny hat. So we let him chop down the trees. Because at that point we didn't have a whole lot of choice. And then finally the white man goes into the woods, into our native land and home, and shoots the last of our birds so that we have practically nothing to eat. But still they wear funny hats. Then there was a time when all was black and we knew nothing until we got into the next panel. Here we can see the white man began to run electricity lines through the trees. I think that's electricity line. But anyway, there was this big funny cloud thing that came by one day. And all of the Hatfields showed up. Nice family. Bunch of people with a whole lot more funny hats. And they settled in our land. But they weren't happy and content between 1878 and 1890 to live in peace. For they met another group of people called the McCoys. It was another white man family with funny hats. And as they began a feud and shooting each other, the white man warring amongst themselves, and the red man was happy. And still there were more trees. And the river became black and polluted with all of the coal and all of the things that the white man had done to the land. And it was never our native home again. For as the mountains, now bare of trees, as you can see, gave way to the white man's village, the white man built buildings, not happy. No, this is a train, sorry. Not happy to be, they made metal roads and built trains and came in and took more of the things away from the red man. And they built houses, buildings, great and wonderful buildings that actually let horses go in their front doors. At least we were happy with that. And as they continued to build more and more buildings, all of the trees were finally gone. And there were other people with funny hats pointing at other people. And apparently the white man became well endowed at that time too. Now the horses even began to rebel, leaving their masters behind. And as the white men hugged one another, I think those are men, I hope one of them's not, but as the white men hugged each other and walked on their streets, they took more and more of our land and built even more and more of our buildings and became even more well endowed. And finally, the groups of men that were not so well endowed got mad and brought guns to shoot against the ones that were more well endowed. At least we think that was around somewhere in May of 1920. It's what we refer to as the Battle of Matewan, or at least that's what the white man calls it. We call it, it's a good thing white men are killing each other again. That was the name for our battle. This one dude was a pacifist that sat back and watched the whole thing. We called him Coward. And then they invented great metal doors with big rocks holding them open. And then there came the Great Flood of 1977. The water came up to this level, if this wall were actually here back then. And the red man rejoiced, thinking that the god of the mountain had finally seeked his revenge on the white man. But instead, by then, the white man had stolen the red man's canoe technology, and they survived. But the trees grew because of all of the water, and it was very nice. But sometime long before that great flood, the white man invented the horseless carriage and still built even more buildings, whatever this big building was. And then the white man ultimately invented the balloon. We don't know what it's for, but it's kind of pretty. The R.W. Buskirk, whatever, building. Red man is out of breath. But we'll continue the tour. If you notice in the windows, there are little ghosty things in most all of them. That's because the white man finally became so well endowed that the ghosts appeared to discover his secret. And then they invented metal detectors and secured all of their buildings because they no longer saw the red man as the threat, but the brown man or the tan man or whatever they are over there. But finally, parents told their little children the story of the Matewan after all of this time. And we finally got recognition by them building a great big wall and putting our story out. Shame there's no one here left to see it, but at least it was a good gesture because they invented stained glass windows that depicted the coal men going into the mountains, because now the white man had raped everything off of the face of the earth. Now they had to dig underneath and take the rest, leaving the red man with nothing but the snow once again. For the white men dug under the mountain and found the magic rock they call coal. We call Watahana Heo, which means coal in Matewan. And then when they could not find enough destructive way to destroy the earth with mere pick and shovel, they developed great horseless machines that could drive and become so well endowed that they could tear the insides of our mountains apart. And again, the Matewan were left with only the snow, simply because the white man couldn't find a way to take that. And then, in the end of all things, as the Mahahatohuanahe come out of the mountain on the great slithering machine snakes. The white man pulls everything left of Matewan. And then there was a time of great darkness for the Matewan, the red man, as we are known by the white men, because they brought in great carriages of machine to bring out what was left of the Matewan from the earth, leaving the red men with not even the snow, for by then they had invented refrigeration and found a way to preserve the snow and took it from the Matewan. And we were left with only what few trees we could find, the clouds above us, and the earth below us. Although the earth below us was full of holes, of course, as we talked about earlier. And now, with only trees left, the Matewan still survive, even though the white man has taken everything. We figured out a way to lobby their own Congress and spend millions of their dollars that they stole from us to build this wall in our honor, even though the river runs black with the dust from the Matewan, and make them build great big metal doors in the middle of our trees so that we no longer have to fear the water. We are only afraid of the white man.